Mom said. "You'll never be good enough, just like your father." And everyone laughed. I smiled and quietly left. 2 weeks later, they begged me to come back when You know that feeling when you're sitting at a table full of people who share your blood, but you still feel like a guest in your own life? That's how every family dinner felt for me. But this one would be different. This one would be the last. It was supposed to be a celebration. My sister, Laura, just got promoted. My younger brother, Kevin, had proposed to his girlfriend. And me? I showed up with a bottle of wine in the quiet hope that maybe this time they'd see me. Really see me. We were halfway through the roast chicken when Mom dropped the line. Her voice smooth as silk, eyes sharp as razors. "You'll never be good enough," she said, smiling sweetly at me across the table. "Just like your father." And then, it happened. The room burst into laughter. Real, belly-deep laughter. Even my dad chuckled, like she just told the world's cleverest joke. Laura covered her mouth but failed to hide her smirk. Kevin leaned back, laughing louder than anyone else. And I smiled. Not because I thought it was funny, but because, for the first time in my life, I wasn't surprised. And that made everything terrifyingly clear. I stood up without a word. Tucked my napkin neatly beside my plate. I didn't slam the door. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't need to. As I stepped out into the cool night, the sounds of their laughter still echoing behind me, I felt something shift. Something inside me, deep and final. This wasn't pain. It was freedom. I went home that night and sat in silence. No TV. No music. Just me and the echo of my mother's voice, bouncing around in the empty apartment like it was trying to find a place to live. "You'll never be good enough. Just like your father." Funny thing is, I don't remember much about my father. He left when I was 6. Or maybe he was pushed out. It depends on who you ask. Mom always said he was weak, that I had his tired eyes and soft spine. But I remember something different. I remember him telling me stories. Quiet ones, right before bed. I remember the way he fixed broken things, radios, clocks, even my favorite action figure with a busted leg. And I remember that when he left, he looked back once. Just once. Like he wanted me to know that it wasn't his choice. In that silence, I opened the old box I'd kept under my bed for years. It was full of things he left behind, an old pocket watch, a photo of him and me at the zoo, and a thick manila folder with my name scribbled on it. I had never looked inside. Not until that night. I opened it, and everything I thought I knew about him, about me, began to unravel. Bank records. Business plans. A name I hadn't seen in years, his, next to mine, on a company incorporation form. Dated 3 months before he disappeared. That's when I knew. He didn't leave because he was weak. He left because someone made him. And now? Now I had a name, a business, and a plan. I didn't sleep that night. I sat up cross-legged on the floor, the folder spread out around me like a puzzle waiting to be solved. My father hadn't just started a business, he started a damn good one. It was a small tech firm, barely more than an idea on paper at the time. But there it was, patented software, early contracts, and my name as co-founder. And then, poof. Gone. Like he never existed. Buried in the paperwork, I found something strange. A withdrawal made weeks after he left. Not by him. By her. My mother. Her name was on a power of attorney form, filed hastily, with a signature I didn't recognize. It was like staring at a crime scene after the dust had settled. That was the moment I realized, she didn't just break him. She erased him. And the firm? It still existed. Thriving, in fact. Different name now, but the bones were the same. And my name? Quietly removed years ago. That night, I made 2 decisions. First, I'd reclaim what was mine. Second, I wouldn't do it in anger. I'd do it with precision. Quietly. Just like she taught me. Because if she was going to compare me to my father, then fine. I'd show her just how much of him lived in me. Over the next 48 hours, I became a man possessed. I didn't eat. I barely slept. But I remembered. I remembered every backhanded comment, every laugh at my expense, every time I was asked to sacrifice money, time, dignity, for people who'd decided long ago that I was disposable. And I remembered my father. Not the man they mocked, but the quiet builder, the thinker, the one who left behind a legacy they tried to bury. I dug up everything I could about the company. It had changed names twice, but the core team was still intact. Still using his foundational code. Still running on a system built by a man they'd all written off. One of them, his former partner, had grown rich, bloated on stolen work. The others? Comfortable. Invisible. Hidden behind an LLC. But I knew something they didn't. My father's code had a signature. A timestamp and a naming convention so subtle it would look like nothing to anyone else. But it was his. And now mine. I reached out to a lawyer, same one who'd helped me form my own side hustle 2 years ago. A solo LLC I'd been building slowly, quietly. We'd been developing a back-end tool, something leaner, smarter, designed to compete directly with the kind of software they were still peddling like it was 2005. And just a month before that family dinner, we'd landed a deal. A big one. A buyout offer from a mid-sized tech firm that saw potential in what I was doing. It had been sitting and signed, waiting for me to decide. So I did. I signed the papers the morning after I found my mother's forged documents. In one signature, I became a wealthy man. Not billionaire wealthy. But free. Secure. Untouchable. And suddenly, I saw the whole chessboard differently. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about truth. 2 days after I signed the buyout, I sent my mother an invitation. It was handwritten. Formal. Just a note on heavy cardstock with a gold-trimmed edge. Elegant. Deceptively warm. Dinner at my place. Saturday at 7. Dress nice. No explanation. No sarcasm. Just enough mystery to bait her curiosity. She texted that same day, "Is this a joke?" I didn't respond. A day later, my sister Laura messaged me, "Mom says you're hosting a dinner? What's the occasion?" Again, no reply. They didn't know it yet, but the same man they laughed out of the house was about to show them just how serious he could be. And the table they once dominated? It would be mine this time. I spent the rest of the week preparing. Not the way they expected, no rented mansion or flashy show of wealth. I wanted the setting to look modest, lived in. Just enough polish to make them question what had changed. Saturday came. I lit a few candles, set the table with clean silverware, and plated a quiet, simple meal: seared salmon, roasted carrots, and a bottle of red I'd been saving for a decade. At 6:59 p.m., the doorbell rang. They arrived in a cluster, my mother in pearls, Laura in heels, Kevin with his usual smug grin. I welcomed them with a calm smile, offered drinks, small talk. The awkwardness started almost immediately. No one asked why they were really there. Not yet. I waited until the plates were clean. Then I stood up and placed a thin black folder on the table. My mother's smile stiffened. "What's this?" she asked. I opened it slowly, revealing copies of the original company paperwork, my name, my father's name, the forged transfer forms. And on top of them, the buyout contract. With my signature. Her eyes widened as she scanned the pages. Laura leaned forward, Kevin stopped mid-sip. "That software company Dad started," I said softly. "The one you said never amounted to anything?" I tapped the last page, the number circled in red ink. "Turns out it amounted to $2.3 million. Silence. For the first time in my life, I saw fear flicker in my mother's eyes. Not of violence. Not of chaos. Of exposure. I took a breath and leaned back. "We'll get to the rest in a moment," I said. "But first, tell me again how I'll never be good enough." For a long moment, nobody said a word. The only sound was the soft hum of the refrigerator and the faint clink of Laura setting her wine glass down. My mother's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her fingers hovered over the papers like they might burn her if she touched them too long. "I didn't know," she started. I raised a hand. Don't, I said, calm but firm. Don't lie. You knew. You signed. You stole. And then you laughed at me while doing it. Kevin shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Look, man, maybe this isn't the time to. I turned to him, smiling coldly. No, it's the perfect time. See, I didn't just find out what you all took. I kept track of everything I gave. I reached for a second folder under the table, this one thicker. Let's go through it, shall we? I opened it and began reading from the list. $1, $200, Laura's car repair in 2018, $3,500, Kevin's rent when he lost that job he never admitted to losing, $9,000 over 3 years, Mom's emergency bills. They stared at me, stunned. I never complained. I never asked for a thing back. But that's over now. I looked at my mother. You said I was just like my father. You meant it as an insult. But let me tell you what I inherited from him, not just his work, but his silence, his patience. And now, his sense of justice. I leaned forward slightly. I'm not asking for my money back. I'm telling you, you're done taking from me. No more handouts. No more calls. No more favors. Laura looked like she wanted to speak. Kevin was staring at the floor. My mother? She looked old. Not in years, but in weight, the kind of weight that comes from realizing you've spent your life pushing away the one person who could have saved you. I never meant to hurt you, she said finally, her voice small. I nodded slowly. I know. But you did anyway. And with that I stood. You can finish your wine. Then I'd like you to leave. They didn't leave right away. They lingered like ghosts, hovering in my living room, glancing around like they were seeing the place for the first time. My mother stood near the window, arms crossed, lips pressed tight like she was biting back something ugly. Laura whispered to Kevin, who just kept pacing in slow, agitated circles. You brought us here just to humiliate us. She finally spat, voice trembling. No, I replied, pouring myself the last glass of wine. I brought you here to give you clarity. I've lived under your judgment for years. Thought if I worked hard enough, stayed quiet long enough, I'd earn your respect. But I realized something. I turned to her, letting the words sit between us. You don't respect anyone you can't control. Kevin scoffed. So what, now you're rich and we're nothing to you? No, I said again. You were nothing to me long before I had money. I just didn't want to admit it. That hit harder than I expected. Laura stepped forward, suddenly softer. Okay, look. Maybe we took you for granted. Maybe we didn't see everything you were doing. But don't you think this is a little extreme? Extreme? I smiled. You laughed when Mom told me I'd never be good enough. You all did. That wasn't a slip-up. That was the truth, yours anyway. I'm just giving you the same honesty. My mother finally turned around, her expression hard. So what now? You're done with us? I finished my wine and set the glass down gently. I'm done being your backup plan. I walked to the front door and opened it. Leave. They moved slowly at first. Laura tried once more, something about blood being thicker than water, but I didn't even respond. Kevin muttered something under his breath as he passed, but I didn't catch it. And my mother? She stopped in the doorway, looked me dead in the eyes and said, You'll regret this one day. I nodded once. Maybe. But it won't be today. Then I closed the door behind them. And I stood there, in the silence, for a long time. Not because I was unsure. Not because it hurt. But because for the first time in my life, I felt peace. They were out. And I was in control. A week passed. No calls. No texts. Just silence. I figured it would stay that way. The message had been delivered, loud and clear. But then, one morning, I woke up to a notification, an email, from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line was just a name, Eleanor Hart. My father's former business partner. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. I was hoping to speak with you. I know who you are. And I know what your mother did. I felt my stomach tighten. Eleanor had disappeared from the business years ago. According to the company's website, she'd retired early to pursue personal projects. But my father had mentioned her once, in a note he scribbled in the margin of an old journal I found while going through the folder. Ellie tried to fight for me. Don't forget that. I replied with a simple message, I'm listening. We arranged a meeting at a quiet cafe 2 towns over, neutral ground. She arrived right on time. White hair in a braid over her shoulder, sharp eyes behind round glasses. She looked at me like she was seeing someone she once loved and lost. You have his eyes, she said. We talked for hours. She told me everything. How the company had been a passion project. How she and my father had built it from nothing. How he had planned to leave my mother but worried about what that would do to me. How, in the end, he trusted her with too much, signed things he didn't fully read, gave her power she used against him. He didn't just walk away, she said, her voice quiet. He was pushed. And when he tried to fight back, she threatened to cut off access to you. I stared at my coffee, hands trembling. He thought leaving was protecting me. Eleanor nodded. He never stopped checking in. I have the letters to prove it. She handed me an envelope. Inside were 6 letters, all addressed to me, none of which I'd ever seen. Postmarked from different cities. Each one returned. Never opened. I think she intercepted them, she said. He was crushed. Thought you'd forgotten him. I felt something crack inside me. A part of myself I'd sealed off years ago now flooded with grief and fury. Why are you telling me all this now? I asked. Eleanor reached into her purse and pulled out a thick manila envelope. Because I never stopped believing the truth would matter. And because he left you this. Inside was a copy of a second will, one my mother never filed. It named me not just as co-founder, but as full heir to my father's share in the company. Signed. Dated. Witnessed. Legally binding. I've already spoken to your lawyer, she said. With this, you can claim control. Not just of the payout. Of everything. My hands shook as I held the papers. This wasn't just a payout anymore. It wasn't just revenge. It was reclamation. Everything they stole from my father. Everything they denied me. All of it was coming back. I stood from the table, voice low, steady. Let's finish what he started. It took 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks of legal filings, ownership claims, and silence. During that time, I didn't speak to my family. Didn't post anything. Didn't respond to the vague, desperate texts that started showing up, first from Kevin, then Laura. Even my mother, who had sworn never to beg, sent me a carefully composed message. If this is about the past, let's move forward. We're still your family. I didn't respond. Because it wasn't about the past anymore. It was about truth. It was about giving voice to someone who'd been erased, first my father, then me. And truth needs no apology. On the 23rd day, the lawyers delivered the news. My claim to my father's share of the company had been verified and accepted. The buyout deal I'd signed would be frozen, restructured. I now held 48% of the voting power. Combined with Eleanor's remaining 7%, we had majority control. In a single document, I became not just the beneficiary, but the decision maker. And the first order of business? A board meeting. The same board that had spent years watering down my father's vision, padding their salaries, praising each other's mediocrity in softly lit conference rooms. They were cordial at first. Smiles. Handshakes. The older ones squinting, trying to remember if they'd seen me before. I didn't give them the satisfaction. I stood at the head of the long, gleaming table and said 5 words. My name is Thomas Blake. The air shifted. Some sat up straighter. Others looked away. One man's face turned pale. My father was Michael Blake. You might remember him. You built this company off his code. Someone tried to object. I raised a hand. And for years you let them say he was a failure. A ghost. You told that lie because it was easier. Because it made you feel clean. Eleanor stood beside me, silent, like a sentinel. I'm not here to relitigate history, I continued. I'm here to correct it. Then I opened a folder and began listing changes, contract reviews, ethics investigations, restructuring plans. But the biggest? A public acknowledgement. In 1 week, the company would release a statement, recognizing my father as co-founder and principal architect of the company's core system, posthumously restoring his name. And mine. You're burning bridges, one board member muttered. No, I said calmly. I'm rebuilding what you tried to burn. After the meeting, I stepped into the hallway and exhaled for the first time in what felt like years. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From release. I thought that would be the end of it. But then, the next morning, I got a call from my mother. I let it ring once. Twice. Then I answered. You're making a fool of yourself, she said. No hello. No pause. I'm restoring my father's legacy, I replied. And taking back mine. You don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. There was silence. Then she said something I'll never forget. I gave you everything. I laughed, quiet, sharp. You gave me silence. You gave me doubt. And when that wasn't enough, you gave me shame. But you know what? That was a gift too. Because it taught me how to survive without you. She didn't speak again. Eventually, I hung up. Later that week, I got another message. This one from Laura. We saw the news. Mom's losing it. She says you've embarrassed her. Kevin wants to talk. I don't know where we stand anymore. I stared at it. Then typed back. You stand exactly where you chose to stand when you laughed. I pressed send and turned off my phone. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for someone to see me. I was already standing in full view. The noise died down eventually. The company's statement went public. A tribute page was posted on their site. In memory of Michael Blake, co-founder, visionary, and builder of our foundation. His photo was there, clear-eyed, smiling, confident in a way I never remembered seeing as a child. My inbox overflowed with messages. Former colleagues. Journalists. People who worked under him in the early days, sharing stories I'd never heard. A man who stayed late to help interns debug. A founder who took meetings in coffee shops when office space was still a dream. They remembered him. And now, so would everyone else. I didn't go back to the company after that. I didn't need to. My work was done. Eleanor handled the restructuring. I moved my share into a trust. Quietly, deliberately, I stepped back. It was never about power. It was about peace. My mother never called again. Kevin sent one more message weeks later, something about starting over. I didn't reply. Laura sent a card. Handwritten. Apologetic in tone, but vague in substance. I set it aside unopened. And me? I moved. To a small, quiet house on the edge of town, the kind of place where the mornings are slow and the windows creak when the breeze picks up. I started building something new, nothing big. Just mine. I work when I want. I take walks. I breathe. Sometimes I pull out the letters my father wrote, the ones I never got as a boy. I read them in pieces. Some are funny. Others heavy. But all of them are filled with love. With hope. With a belief that maybe, just maybe, his son would find his way back. And I did. But not to them. To me. So if you're listening to this, if your family has ever made you feel small, invisible, like you're only worth what you can give, listen closely. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to protect your peace. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is quietly become everything they said you never could. Then leave them behind to miss what they never deserved to keep.